It is wonderful, really. I'm very much impressed. And the next speaker is a legend already. Makar, he's a wonderful expert already, but the person who will speak next is a legend. The young generation, you will be very much interested in listening to this person, because here we are going to see practical things. We are all striving for practical things. We'll talk about fundamental technologies and how to convert them into commercially successful products. So please welcome on stage the head and the founder of Motorica company. And here, please meet Ilya Chekh. Ilya the legend. He is with us. Thanks, Dmitry. Hi, everyone. Well, indeed, today we're going to talk about the complex topic, and of course I will not be able to fit everything into the timing, into the slot I got, but today I will try to highlight the basic notions of what fundamental research is, what it consists of, why do we do that, and how we can create products and technologies, sellable technologies based on that. And then I'll show several examples of what we do within Motorica and of what I do in my new company. I'll talk about how we turned fundamental research work into successful commercial products, not only in Russia, but in other countries as well. So let's start. We'll start with the basic product cycle. Hope you can see the screen well. If we task ourselves with coming up with a new technology, discovering a new technology, and then converting it into a commercial product, then we need to split all the phases into three large blocks. The first block is the research itself. Block number two, finding the niche or the product that corresponds to the discovery that we are making. And after you find this product market fit, when you understand that there is a request and you can close this request of the market with your product and suggest a solution, after that you can switch to development and commercialization. Going deeper into details, let's take the stage of fundamental research. The notion of fundamental research, every user, person and scientist takes it differently, because we have different level of understanding of what fundamental is. Some people think that fundamental is the foundation of the universe, the Big Bang, how all that happened, and that's fundamental for them. For some people, discovering a new technological process, discovering a new type of coating, or coming up with a new chemical formula, that's fundamental for them. For other people, when they come up with a new algorithm and a new method of machine learning, that's fundamental for them. That's their definition. If we bring all that together, we'll see that fundamental is something that provides foundation for a technology that will be used by the product. So first, we establish the foundation for that knowledge. We put the technology on that foundation, and based on that, we create a commercial product. So the process of finding this foundation and the process of research consists of the following steps. So first, we theorize. We put it on paper, we build mathematical models, and we suggest the way things should work. Then we need to run an experiment in order to understand whether that flies or that's just an interesting idea. And here I can cite an example from my practice, because we actually work within astrophysics at the moment. So we're engaged in fundamental space research work. And there is a large pool of scientists who work with string theory. Do you know what that is? Right, great. So the theory of strings
что-то подтвердительное
It's fully developed. You can't run an experiment that can
в фундаментальных исследованиях,
debunk or
который должен нам
prove
показать,
it.
как это работает, и действительно из этого можно
So
какой-то коммерческий продукт.
in our process, we need to
Технологии,
switch to experimenting to prove that the process we suggest is valid. So we validate
гипотезу,
through experiment
самым
our theory, our hypothesis, and with that we close the stage of fundamental research. And then comes the most interesting part, because we learned something new, something got discovered, we came up with this new formula, the new equation, and then we need to convert it into something really useful. So finding a product within
одно из самых сложнейших
a piece of fundamental knowledge within a certain technology, that's one of the most complex tasks for technological entrepreneurship, for fundamental entrepreneurship, because you need to have general culture that is really extensive, because you need to understand, you need to be able to see where you can apply your discovery, from car manufacturing to cybersecurity, and at least at a very
технологии или ваши изобретения.
high level, you should be able to understand where, in which domain you can apply this or that discovery. And in order to have this pool of knowledge, this
И чем больше вы знаете,
broad of knowledge, you need to be very curious, intrinsically curious. And the more domains, the more things you are interested in, the easier you will find the process of searching for
реализуемость
application of your technology. And then you need to prove that technologically it is possible to apply your knowledge there.
и попытки. Это,
The second option for commercialization is to see
эксперимента
whether the equipment that you created for your experiment is of commercial value as well. Because going back to fundamental research, on one hand, you generate new knowledge that you can use to create your new product. But secondly, you create new detectors, new equipment, new sensors, new algorithms.
способно быть коммерчески интересным и
And independently on the success of your experiment, this equipment on itself can be commercially valuable and usable, and you can commercialize the equipment as well. And then you need to analyze your industrial
придумали.
possibilities and where you can apply the knowledge you generated. And then once you understood that you indeed discovered or created a new algorithm,
Уже стандартный цикл R&D.
then you run your standard R&D and commercialization cycle.
Я вам, наверное, не скажу, да, то есть мы делаем
And probably here I can't say many new things to you. We first
что действительно
create
проблема, что
the technical
ваша технология способна
task, we formulate the task, we
и, собственно,
proceed with standard consumer development, commercialize it and scale it up. And
долго, потому
that part can be, again, unpacked and expanded and explained for eternity, because this technological entrepreneurship can use many models. Now let's switch to examples, because, I mean, theory is wonderful. I've talked about that a bit. And now let's see
я вот вывел
how these things
самый показательный
operated already. And here I tried to cite probably the most explicit examples of how fundamental research or technologies could be
все мы знаем,
were converted to a product. Quantum mechanics. No one understands that. Even the scientists who came up with that theory, but it still works. We have equations, and thanks to that, we understood how semiconductors work, and we got this product, transistors, which laid
по сути, построен
the basis for our industry. And basically, the modern world
пример ДНК.
resides on understanding of quantum mechanics. The second example is DNA.
Как мы все
The DNA was discovered, we understood how biology works, how nature works, and based on that knowledge, we developed
редактирование для
a technology and a tool to edit this new entity that was discovered, but that's not product still. CRISPR-Cas9, the technology that is used right now for really for many medical processes for therapy, but CRISPR-Cas9 is not a patented technology, and any scientist can use it. So the product in this chain is gene editing for specific to cure a specific disease or to change the color of your child's eyes and so on and so forth. Example number 3. The photo effect and its description. That's what Einstein got his Nobel Prize for, not for the relativity theory. And that effect actually allows us to use the materials that emit electrons when sunbeams reach them. And that's what photovoltaic elements are based on. And that's an evident commercial product. So these are the 3 examples of how fundamental technologies were turned into commercial products. Now, let's switch to what we do now. We created a company. We are called the cutting edge of science. We go for research in terms of space and astrology. We work with the notions of gravitation and dark matter. And based on that knowledge, we try to come up with commercial technologies. So we come up with the ways of how this knowledge about gravity can help us to travel to faraway stars and so on. So here I compare the level of the task that we put in front of ourselves to the examples I already cited. For instance, quantum mechanics. That was the basis of our electronics. The new breakthrough in physics with gravitation, full understanding of it will help us to build completely new technologies for moving in space and interaction with physical objects. So the task of our association to engage in fundamental research and support fundamental research, then out of the results of the research, we select technologies that can be commercialized, we develop new products, and after that, we scale them up not only in Russia, but in other countries as well, globally. And our the avenue of work number 3 for us is commercialization and everything that is required for making our society science-centric and to promote new discoveries within our society. So what is the basis of our business model? How do we turn fundamental science into commercial products? So what we do is we commercialize scientific equipment that is used for scientific research, for fundamental research, when we create satellites, when we build different pieces of equipment. We perform R&D because we have good developers and we can go for not only the research we are interested in, but we can take orders for research from the Russian Space Agency and other agencies. And then 2 more additional elements is venture investment and commercial investment. Thus, we act as well as an investment foundation. We invest into companies whose technology or technologies can be used for our fundamental research of the future. For instance, if we need to build a facility on the moon, we invest into startups that get us closer to that point. And now let me cite several specific technologies that were created back in Motorica and that we work on now. One of our main advantages when we were developing prosthetics
то
in Motorica, starting from
внедрение, вживление
the simplest items, we started
передачу чувств
developing the technology of introducing electrodes into human body and transferring the sensitivity. So to
специальные электроды и
periphery
разрабатываем
nerves,
то есть это микротоки.
we connected electrodes and we developed the mechanism of nerve stimulation, the microcurrent, and stimulating certain zones of this nerve evoke
Правильными параметрами электростимуляции,
senses or
соответственно, за
stimuli within human body that are close to
полтора года работы мы
real
и создали такую
physical senses.
технологию. Да, то есть это еще не продукт.
So we performed several operations and created this technology.
История.
That wasn't a product, that was the process of studying the stimulation itself. So that wasn't commercial yet. And then we started the commercialization side of it. And there we
Обратная связь, да, то есть
came
в которой вы
to
ощущать.
three, here I cited two conclusions, but we came to three conclusions. First,
Скажем так,
we discovered the possibility of feedback. So the person could perceive something from the external environment and send a feedback. That was a very good advantage of our products comparing to the competitors.
когда мы можем
Then we could create a new class of human-to-machine interfaces when, for instance,
например, независимо каждым пальцем.
fine motorical signals could be picked up from a human body and used
И
to operate
она потенциально решает эту проблему.
prosthetics,
Это здесь не указано, и то, что мы на самом деле
and that our technology could help us to solve that
разработки такой
problem. And then a side effect of this technology was that we understood that thanks to this kind of interface, thanks to the methodology of stimulation that we created,
если вы когда-нибудь с этим
we
сталкиваетесь,
could use it to cure phantom
то есть человек чувствует,
pains.
чешется, она
If,
болит.
for instance, a person lost
Стимуляции,
their arm,
болей, его можно снимать.
this person can face the problem of phantom pains, and
Реализация.
thanks to that kind of stimulation, that
А,
problem, that
То, чем
symptom could be cured. So that was the third result for this fundamental research.
мы
Today, what we do,
вместе с
and one of our biggest projects is the one that we do together with the Moscow State University.
который стоит в горах, который
We have the
Луну
lunar phase
времени измеряет
wave
состояние, да? Я вот
meter. So basically, this device can measure the wavelength at a great distance. And probably this picture is not very clear, but basically
которые туда были доставлены
on the moon,
то есть они разбросаны по Луне.
we have small mirroring plates that are scattered across the moon surface, and we use laser to send a beam to these plates to get a beam of photons back. And in this way, in the real-time mode, we can
Да, то есть что у нас
measure the distance to the moon. And when we have a gravity length, which is space distortion, for instance, we have two objects that are spaced out
источника излучения.
in the space, and if there is a
Наш
gravitation
разрабатываем
wave
колебания и, соответственно, давать
between us and these objects,
волну,
this wave can be picked up by our device,
как она возникает.
and that helps us to study how gravitation spreads in space and how it functions. So it helps us to discover how all that
Супералгоритм, который
actually functions in nature.
может
So, okay, we have this super laser,
определять
and with the precision of 10 microns, it can measure the distance out there in the space. How can we possibly commercialize it? So we thought that with the help of this technology, for instance, we could track different objects orbiting the Earth
для вот такого, казалось бы, фундаментального.
up to the distance of 380
И, соответственно,
kilometers.
в итоге мы пришли к тому, оценивая,
So finally,
потенциал этой технологии,
assessing the potential of this technology, we concluded that we can use this technology not only to measure the distance, but also, for instance, for taking a picture of this object
негативная схема,
within a certain spectrum
для идентификации.
that will be quite
Это достаточно уникальная продукт.
a limited picture in terms of the spectrum we get, but still it's commercializable. So that's our track for this project specifically. We're in the first stage of implementing this project. We are formulating the task, and we're developing. Then we will be developing the technology, and after that we will be launching it as a product. And finally, the product and the project that we're developing now, we will need it for lunar stations and for stations on Mars. That's
Культивирует микроводоросли. Да? То есть это
that's development of a closed circuit, closed cycle system
микроводоросли.
based on bioreactor. There is
Это основной цикл
a small
микроводорослей.
weed that can absorb CO2 and
Биомасса
emit
микроводорослей, которая дальше идет.
oxygen. We have a certain amount of biomass of that weed that
Который потом идет на корм человеку. И так мы получаем
can
экосистему
become feed for
внутри
primitive organisms, that can become fodder for fish, and fish can be eaten
по сути это
by people, can become food for people, and that can be used
там, на Марс.
within lunar stations and Mars stations, because there are two fundamental problems to be solved before we will be able to travel to Mars. First is energy. We will need to solve the problem of how we will find energy for those engines. And the second problem is a biological closed cycle ecosystem that can be self-sustainable without additional
Или раз в полгода, или
top-ups or without being fed
так подпитывают.
from Earth.
Система, которая будет обеспечивать
So we task ourselves with creating of this full cycle, complete cycle system to support astronauts and cosmonauts.
Но
So this is a technology that will be developed
инвестиций
for a long time, and that looks far into the future. It will need a lot of investments, and actually we thought that in order to be able to do that, we thought that we need to see how this technology can be used on Earth as well. And then after some thinking, we realized that there can be three fields of application for this technology.
партнеров компаний запускают
So right now we are working with several partners, with companies, to test out these hypotheses.
то есть микроводоросли.
What are these domains? First is water treatment for cities, because microweed can be used for water treatment. Domain number two,
В агрохолдинг
creating biomass as fodder for
в
fish farms.
является не сам фотобиореактор,
And number three
микроводоросли,
is
которые там постоянно.
producing food supplements.
Направление это, собственно, промышленная очистка воздуха.
And then finally, another large domain is
Направление интересно, потому что все
air purification and CO2 processing. And that's very interesting because all the existing air purification facilities, they do not produce oxygen and they do not capture CO2. And our advantage is that we could take a large office building,
цикл
and in skyscrapers there are always problems with air quality, and we could, for instance, loop all the air from the ventilation system to our bioreactors.
качество воздуха
Our reactors would produce pure oxygen, which could improve air quality inside the building. So all the office workers within this building would get air of better quality. So these are the examples of how fundamental research can be turned into first technologies and then into products. And that basically ends my very brief overview of this topic. You can subscribe to our channels to see in real-time mode how we develop all that, and have a wonderful day.
Этого дня. И мы не знали друг друга до этого лета. Кто не знал Илью Чеха?
So once you can see that Ilya Chekh, the living legend, and only 2 people here didn't know about Ilya Chekh before. So do you really understand who this person is? Do you want children from this man? Oh yeah, obviously he's one of the best. Yes, true.
Знаете, да,
Next, we have a Q&A session. At the same time, you'll be able to get a few more children there. Yes, obviously. But sure, I'm joking around. But with your palette, with your range of potential products, you have lasers to define the range so that you can learn the range to the moon or to other celestial objects. And actually, I worked at the anniversary for a company that is very active here in Russia, especially during our times, and they create prosthetics, and actually saw people for the first time with these prosthetics. And you cannot really call this, you do not really, I thought it was a real glove, and it was a Russian produced prosthetics. They take impulse measurements, they take the fine motorics, little movements of your fingers, of your hand, and they actually take all this information, and it feels very natural. So yeah, but for currently, with these glasses, with the haptics, there is not enough feedback. And maybe you can actually create an event agency. Yes, so you have it.